Beautiful. Hello and welcome back to our final panel of the Slingshot Summit, our long-awaited artist panel. And so for our artist panel, we are so happy to welcome Ellie, Sumit, Garrett, and Prince Fox. And a brief introduction on each artist. Ellie is a singer-songwriter aiming to make the soundtrack of your life. She's a student at USC and has used the power of social media to grow her audience exponentially in the past year. Ever since throwing concerts in her living room, Ellie has let her genuine love for music fuel her process. Sumit is a rapper on the rise, with thousands of listeners and fans across social media. His catchy, upbeat pop music has been featured on the internet. I have been featured on Internet People, Banger of the Day, and reposted by Rico Nasty. Studying at USC's Jimmy Iovine and Andre Young Academy, Sumit never misses a beat with his heart-pumping music and innovative videos. Garrett, also known as Postcard Boy and Car Wash on Spotify, is a singer-songwriter from San Diego, California, who complements his indie tunes and breathtaking visuals. He's been featured on Spotify's Fresh Finds Class of 2019, Indie Chill Out, Bedroom Pop, and Chill Vibes playlists. With over 200,000 monthly listeners, he's taking the indie world by storm with his personality and spirit. And last, but certainly not least, Prince Fox is a DJ and producer who has worked with some of the biggest names in the music industry, such as YG, Rich the Kid, and many more. His talented network and his number of fans is growing larger and larger, all in support of his Pop That Knocks. Today, we're thrilled to hear from a few of the artists shaping the next generation of music. And once again, if you find this useful, please head over to sling.la/donate to donate to Music Cares and help out artists in need, especially during this pandemic. So please join me in welcoming our wonderful artist panel. Beautiful. Hello, guys. So starting off, do we want to go around with a brief intro, add on to anything that was just said? Let's start with Prince Fox.
Hi, my name is Sam. I've been making music professionally for about 7 years now. Like you were saying, I've worked with a bunch of people of all different genres, and I'm just happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Of course. Ellie, you want to go next?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Ellie. I'm a singer-songwriter based in LA. Been writing for a very long time. Grew up in Lawrence, very musical, and also very happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me. And yeah.
Beautiful. Garrett or Sumit? Which one?
Yeah, I'm Garrett. I'm also very happy to be here. Thank you to Kyla for inviting me. And looking forward to it. Thank you.
Awesome. Hello, my name's Sumit. I've been an artist, like officially an artist, I guess, on streaming platforms for like a year now. Before that, I was, your high school's classic SoundCloud rapper. But I'm a sophomore at USC. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Beautiful, of course. So do you guys just want to start off by walking us through a little bit about how you got started in the music industry and what you love most about it?
Same order, or how do you want to?
Whoever order, whoever.
I got started in the music industry.
Yeah.
So I was in NYU, and I started just randomly remixing whatever was hot at the time on Hype Machine and putting stuff up on SoundCloud, and it really was an accident that it started to gain a bit of traction. And I actually met Phil Quist, who I think was a couple panels ago, and started working with him and playing shows. And it all really happened a lot faster than I can even recall at this point. But it was just a really happy accident, and I'm grateful to be here doing all this, I guess.
Beautiful. What about you, Ellie? We'll just go in that same order, so it flows nice.
Yeah, for sure. I started writing songs when I was a kid, grew up in a very musical family, and wrote songs with my sisters about really dumb things like mermaids and shoelaces. And I'm very glad that I grew out of that and started writing about some other things, but moved to LA and started writing and producing a full album and a bunch of singles to follow that, and have just been kind of riding that wave and collaborating with as many people as possible, and really just kind of working on my own sound and my craft. And seeing where it takes me so far. So, yeah.
I started kind of making more electronic music because I was editing short videos to different kind of like future based, I guess, kind of music, and that's kind of where I started before transitioning towards a more alternative space that kind of felt more authentic to me. And then my sound's kind of evolved as I've made more music just throughout the last few years. And yeah, I'm just really grateful that there's been people who started listening and met a lot of really cool friends through it.
Yeah, I grew up a huge fan of Kanye. And when I was little, like my brother used to joke that my brain was like 90% song lyrics, and I would just be like at the bus stop and stuff like that, just like rapping like the latest Eminem song, and I was like 11 or something like that. And I like I said, I became the classic SoundCloud rapper at like my middle school and high school, and then I just started to learn more as I did it for fun. And at USC, I was able to surround myself with people who were actually good at like producing and actually good at design and stuff like that. And just being in that community helped me take it a little bit more seriously. And I still wouldn't say my music is the most serious. Like it's definitely just fun, energetic music. But I put a lot of work into it now, and I treat it more of like a job than just like a side hobby. So that's how I got started.
Beautiful. And moving into, I guess, a bit of advice for budding independent artists. What should independent artists focus on in the early stages? And in addition to that, what's one thing that you wished you knew about the music industry prior to beginning your career that you can maybe give a heads up to some other people?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think that independent artists should be focused on making as much music as they can behind the scenes, and then putting out music that you are happy to, parade in front of the world, so to speak. You always need to be your biggest fan to convince other people that, they should be a fan of you as well. And if your heart's not 100% in everything that you're putting out, it definitely comes across. I've found that that's something that I wish I knew, because I just started producing and putting out remixes and stuff like that. And, a couple of years into doing the Prince Fox project, I had a lot of people around me saying like, oh, like you can produce this, just put out something like that sounds like this, or just put out something like that. And I got to a point where I was like, well, who am I making what kind of music for? And I felt like I needed somebody else to tell me what it is that I should be making. Whereas, the points in my career where I had the most amount of quote unquote sustained success were when I was just doing what I thought was cool and things that I wanted to listen to and that I felt good about sharing. So I would just say work as much as you are willing to, and just make things that you are proud of.
Yeah, I think my answer is definitely going to be pretty similar. I think it's important for artists to make music that they're proud of and make as much of it as possible, because through that process, through the creating process, naturally you're going to get better at what you do, and the content that you're creating is going to become a lot better the more you do it and get comfortable with, what sound you want to have, what kind of image you want to present of yourself. And I think it's really important for people to make what you want to make and make sure it's good. And my one piece of information that I guess I would want to know about the industry before going into it is it's a lot smaller than it seems. I think when you think of the music industry, it seems so large. It seems like there's all these really high up people, but it's really just a combination of small people making music that they like and collaborating with people that they want to, and making music with them. So I guess that would be my kind of advice, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with all the things that they've said so far. I think a big thing is kind of goes off making a lot of music, but not being afraid for your sound to evolve to like a new direction. Like just for me, like it was definitely I was very focused on making electronic music. Then it totally went to a new space. Then more recently, like I've definitely explored even a more rock space than I had in the past. And I think being open to trying to find where maybe your music sits and like where does it feel the most like yourself. And that, like, I think that's kind of like an endless search as you're making music, is like, who am I as an artist, and like what kind of sound do I want to like present. And then same with kind of what Ellie said about like it's such a small community. You kind of find within like your little space. I think that's like one of my favorite things is just like the friends that I've been able to. There's so much, like they're all so kind and like so creative, and they're like my best friends from today, even though we all met just on the internet, and like they might be in New Zealand or they might be in New York. But I think that's something that's really powerful.
Yeah, and to echo what Sam said is that like now it's streaming and social media being a huge part of like every artist's career. It's so easy to like make music for what you think people will want. And that's kind of how I started. Like I just made music that I thought people would like play in a locker room before a game. And the more you do that, the more you're like getting rid of the creative aspects that make an artist an artist. And so I would say like create. Like Ellie said, you're going to get more comfortable with it, and you're also going to evolve. And the other thing is that like all of my best projects and best songs and like most successful little things have been when working with other people. Like a lot of times I feel like because everything's so numbers driven now, people are less hesitant to reach out or even offer a helping hand because it's about me and how I can exist like as compared and in competition with all these other artists. But like my best song was produced by someone who just DM'd me after they found me on a Spotify playlist, right? And so like don't be afraid to reach out, and not only to people that are bigger than you, but just people you genuinely like. You like their music, and you can reach out to them even if they have like 4 monthly listeners, right? Like, so yeah, I would definitely encourage people to work with people more.
Beautiful. That is a perfect segue into our next question, actually, which is how would you recommend approaching other artists that you would like to work with? How do you start up that initial conversation?
I think that it's definitely changed for me throughout the years, like depending on what sorts of social media stuff has been prevalent. Like in the beginning, when I was first coming up, SoundCloud was a huge part of it, and the SoundCloud community kind of formed its own group, with the movie Castle guys and Manila Killa and Jai Wolf, and there were these like subgroups within the SoundCloud community that you sort of became friends with on Facebook and then messaged there and decided to work with. I think nowadays it's just a matter of having that confidence that if you get in the room, or in COVID's case, if you're on a Zoom with someone and you play them like 5 of the ideas that you're working on, they'll be just as excited to hear it as you are to show it. And having that kind of self-awareness to be like, I'm at this level that I should, try and be, reaching out to X, Y, and Z artists, or I'm not there yet, but I will be, and saying like, in 3 months, I want to DM Post Malone with the hottest beat he's ever heard. And setting that kind of goal for yourself has really helped me build a catalog of like a ton of beats that I can send to all different kinds of artists, but also to know where I stand in things and just be like, look, I feel good that if tomorrow I get in the studio with X, Y, and Z artists, I can make them excited. I can bring that charisma. I can give them music that they are really passionate about, or knowing like I don't have something for this kind of a situation, even if it's a huge opportunity, knowing when to kind of step back. So I guess the short answer is just kind of be really self-aware, and the more self-aware you are, the more aware you can make others of you and what you can and can't do. And that's like the best way to be collaborative, is just to be honest with where you're at, where they're at, what they need, etc.
I think just going off of that with the whole like being honest of where you're at and where other people are at, I think in my experience, with the music that I listen to and some of the artists that I listen to, I'll look them up on Instagram and kind of see where they're at. And if they're smaller artists, then I feel more confident in like DMing them and being like, hey, like, I love your songwriting, like would love to collaborate or write with you sometime. Like this is what I do, sort of thing. And if it's, obviously I'm not going to like DM Harry Styles because that would be a waste of everyone's time. But I think finding artists that I genuinely like and would want to work with that are kind of in a similar space as I am, has led to some really nice like friendships and collaborations out of that. So yeah, I think just kind of being bold and going for it, but also knowing where you're at and what's realistic. And, you know, you want to make sure that you have some nice odds going into it. So if you, again, DM Harry Styles and you have like 2 followers on Instagram, like kind of what Sumit said earlier, like social media has definitely changed the way that people reach out to others. And it's kind of unfortunate of how much of a numbers game it is, but that's the reality. So you just kind of have to be aware of that and where you stand with all of that.
Yeah, I think just like giving an example, I guess, because I think everything that they said is like 100% how I approach collaboration with people, and like genuinely being a fan of someone you want to collaborate, I think is a huge key, that you're not just going in there because they have more listeners than you, or they know someone. I don't think that'll ever kind of work in the long term. But the first person I ever kind of reached out to in the DMs was this artist, Tom Verburn, who is a New Zealand artist that like I was like a nothing artist, and I just DM'd him because I was a huge fan of a song that he put out, and I kind of hit him with the classic DM that I honestly don't recommend sending, where you'd like send them a track and you're like, hey, do you want to feature on this? That sometimes can work, but I think that's probably not the best approach. But he was really kind, and we ended up working on a song together, and my production at the time I was still learning, and he sent me his Logic file after, and just being able to see his thing, I like learned so much of what I could do in a project. And then from there, it kind of just started like a friendship that we kept up over the last like 3 years to this point. And Tom ended up coming to America from New Zealand about a year ago from today, and staying at my house. And then we like went to New York and made more music. And so I think that's kind of like a testament about just reaching out to people that you genuinely think that you could have a long-term friendship with, rather than just like a one-off song or something like that.
Yeah, everything that Sam, Ellie, and Garrett said has been like, I couldn't agree more with. And just to add on to that, another thing is like, I guess COVID doesn't really allow this now, but when everything gets better, like spending time in a studio with someone and, not making a hit song, but getting to know them and like seeing how they work and learning from them can sometimes be more beneficial, right, than just getting a feature through a DM. And so like, don't hesitate to just do that and be like, hey, like, you want to get in the studio. But I guess now, like, DMing people, I would say like, don't be stingy if you're getting DM'd, be like, oh no, my price is like this, when it's really not that. And like, I've made that mistake of being like, oh, actually, like, I charge more than that for a feature, and I've just lost the opportunity, and it's not really worth it, especially as a small artist, right? Like, I'm not like Amine, and I can't charge like a huge amount and expect people to meet it. But the other thing is also, don't sell yourself short. Like, don't know your worth as an artist, because I think a big part of that is now taking that from artist to artist conversations to, artist to manager and artist to label conversations, is that really understanding that you are making art that people value, right? And that you gotta, I guess, defend it in some way. But yeah, I think the biggest thing would just be like the best, thanks, Kate. The most important thing isn't just getting a feature. I think it could be just working with someone and learning from them. That's like where I've learned the most. So.
Absolutely. And I know that you guys did touch up quite a bit about social media, so I did want to bring up one question, just asking to elaborate on what your experience has been with the different types of platforms. I know that both Sumit and Ellie, you guys are currently on TikTok doing that, and that's how Sumit got his feature with Rudy, got his music shared by Rico Nasty. So just what sort of advice do you have for independent artists when boosting up their social media presence, when interacting with followers, just sort of getting their music out there on a more digital space?
Oh man. Make sure whatever type of content you're posting is sustainable. If you like try and chase a lot of gimmicks, at least from my experience, it gets really taxing, and I'm like, fuck, this feels like a job. Like I'm not enjoying this. But if you post types of content that you're excited about and that you're like, oh, like, yeah, I love playing guitar, I love singing this song, like I'm just going to keep posting these things that I'm really passionate about or something like that, I think it comes off to the person that's watching like, oh, this person, they really like it. It's not just like, something that they think will go viral. I feel like you can sniff out something that's like, oh, this is going to go viral, toss it up, versus I love this, I hope you love it too. I feel like it, especially with more and more people getting on TikTok, it just comes through that way. So I think that would be for any social media platform, that would be my advice, is just post yourself. Like there's only one you, just milk that.
I would absolutely agree with Sam on that. And I think just in my own experience, especially with TikTok, because TikTok is such an interesting app with the way that their algorithm works. I'm so fascinated by it. But I think, posting about like music video related content was kind of natural. And I started doing like covers and stuff. And, the more I was doing it, I was kind of like, this is fun, but it's also not really like what I do. Like I'm a songwriter, that's what I do. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just do like, I made like one TikTok that was like comment stuff I should like write about. And then just started doing a bunch of like songwriting TikToks. And that was really fun for me. And it also challenged me because there were some really weird comments. And I was getting a lot of engagement on those and people seemed to like it, which was great because I liked doing it. So it just kind of naturally progressed that way. But also just like what Sam was doing, or what Sam was saying about like social media, you're presenting yourself. And if people don't like what is on your social media, like if they don't like you, then they're probably not gonna, take the extra step to support you and listen to your music and stuff. So I think it's really important to be authentic and post about stuff you want to post about and be your honest self on there, because that's what people are supporting, is you as a person and your art. So
yeah I think social media is honestly a place that I should probably be or work on. Sometimes I get a little bit overwhelmed on social media, but I think just whatever feels like yourself, I think that's what you should focus on. That's what you're going to always feel more comfortable in. Like as of right now, like I don't post all the time on really any service besides like Instagram stories when I need to like update things for certain people, or I know artists that just kind of like do email newsletters and stuff like that. But I think it's like an amazing place if you can utilize it correctly, like TikTok and stuff like that, for your growth and stuff like marketing your music and yourself. But I think definitely don't post anything that doesn't feel genuine to yourself is not my number one thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people chase virality, and like Sam said, that's not sustainable. And I follow Ellie on TikTok, and I love it because she can post like 4 or 5 of them a week, right? And they're all different, but they're all what she loves doing, right? And the stuff I post, like I would do the same thing. Like I could make like however many. It's not something that I don't like doing, that I just did for virality. But I think people notice that. And then the other thing is that like I would encourage artists, especially just like there's no really downside to just joining another social media platform, even though it is exhausting. I guess that's the downside, because if you catch the right wave of like a new social media platform at the right time, that could really boost your audience. And the other point about virality is that 10 fans of who you are and your content will be so much stronger and better for your career than a million people seeing you once.
So yeah, 100%.
Beautiful. I'm just reading through the chat comments right now to see if there's a question we can pick out. Okay, here's one. So I know that, I think, okay, that's a question about managers. I'm pretty sure. Sam, do you have a manager, or are you an independent artist?
I've had a few managers, but at the moment I'm managing myself just because I prefer.
Beautiful. Then this is a panel of independent artists. So let's go to this one question. How has COVID affected your creative process? And have you found anything specifically that helps keep you on track? I know that right now everything's a lot more digital, and a big part of, very fun part of being a musician was getting to play live shows, getting to interact with people in the studio. And how have you guys been finding this sort of digital translation?
The digital translation of to shows and sessions, you mean?
Yeah, just how your whole creative process and how you've been interacting online versus when things were in person.
Oh man. Well, I mentioned to you guys sort of backstage that I can say this. I'm not going to be putting out music as Prince Fox anymore. So whoever's watching, there's the tea. And I've kind of taken this whole pandemic to figure out who I am, what's sustainable, what kind of music I care about writing. And for myself, I mean, for other people, I'm still doing whatever. But for myself and my own artistry, the ability to kind of step out from doing shows and not have to be in studios with people and not have to interact has, in some ways turned into a blessing, because I can really not be influenced by anything and say to myself, okay, after all this time, what do I still care about? What do I still want to do? What makes me excited? So, I wrote this album and I feel the best I've felt about music ever. Just from that isolation. I mean, I obviously miss playing shows and I miss being in the studio with people, but it was the curse that kind of turned into a blessing on my end. Zoom sessions are tough though. I will say that.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think Zoom sessions have been a really big adjustment for me. But what I realized is that being able to do Zoom writing sessions with people has opened up a lot of opportunities to collaborate with people across the world that I originally wouldn't be able to work with. So I had a session with someone in the UK and someone in New York and Nashville and stuff, which has been super cool, because if, in non-COVID times, it would take forever to plan that and make sure, the stars would have to align for that to work out. But doing sessions on Zoom allowed that to happen and just be a lot more easier and accessible. But definitely miss live performances a bunch, and going to be very hyped when that opens up again. But live streams also, those work as well. So it's just kind of adjusting to the circumstances, I suppose.
Yeah. I haven't done that much session work, so I can't really relate to the Zoom session thing too much. I think for me, it's kind of been nice to, I guess, a lot of my focus, or 90% to 100% of my focus has kind of been on music when kind of before the pandemic hit. That's kind of where all my energy and my, I guess, it was the largest influence kind of on if my mood that day, if I was happy or if I was frustrated, if something wasn't going right. And I think kind of having COVID slow things down a lot and just has made me kind of reevaluate what things are really valuable to me, and what kind of things to recenter my life around, just with family or going on a walk every day, or starting to read and write more, not specifically music related, but just kind of has made, I think, me a more joyful person coming out of the pandemic. And then now I can still approach music with that passion, but just it's not the sole thing, I guess, that decides my attitude for that day. And I think that's been a nice adjustment, as well as DJ sets. All the online DJ sets are super fun. I think that artists were doing, even not even playing their own music. Sincerely Scatterbrained was throwing these Zoom sets that were just really fun to watch, and just kind of like was fun to look forward to, have something to look forward to that you could like dance to, or just like see your artists that you like be a little bit more loose and not take things as seriously, or like crafting a perfect live set. I think that was kind of fun to see as well.
Yeah, and I think for myself, like I've only been doing this seriously for like a couple months to a year, and so I've never honestly like experienced a lot of the live stuff that older artists have. Like I've never done a live show. I've been to a studio a couple times, but I never usually like routinely worked in the studio, and so I kind of had to like learn and do a lot of my early artistry stuff on my own. So just sitting in my room making music isn't too new, which I guess is a blessing. But I think like being able to do that and just sit here and make music. Like I've made all my music for, this past year and this next year in like a 2-month span in like July. And so like the music that comes out of this pandemic, from every artist, from small artists like us to like bigger art, like Rihanna's album, I know is going to be even crazier now. Like that Frank Ocean album is going to be even crazier now. And I bet it would have been out by now if COVID never happened. So, yeah, I think it's been somewhat of a blessing, but obviously, it sucks like not being able to go into the studio or do shows and stuff like that. But I think it's helped people to think creatively.
Beautiful. We also just had a question that came in from our IG Live. And this user is asking for advice on how to deal with unreleased content. They say, I love using it to build up hype and use social media presence, but I don't want to ruin any surprises or mystery that comes with that release. So how do you guys usually approach those kinds of issues?
How to deal with unreleased content. Man, that's a good one. And I was actually talking about this with Sunil the other day. For me, I think that people's attention spans on social media are really short, and the best time to release or like to tease unreleased content is when there's an actionable item like around the corner, whether it's the next day or the next week, because you can get your entire fan base hype about a song. And if you release it 5 months later, the retention between those two types of posts might not be as good as if, let's say, you post a video of you making in the studio that really was 5 months ago, but you post it and then the next day, bang, the song's out. Everyone's like, holy shit, I love this song. I was waiting for it to come out. It's really a matter of creating your own narrative and storyline and not letting it get broken up by like, here's song preview, beautiful cup of coffee, lovely dinner, actual song, and trying to like create your own momentum that way.
Yeah, I think as far as like building hype with unreleased music, I like to drop really subtle hints before I release the song. Like if I'm like, new music coming, or maybe I'll drop like a lyric here and there, maybe I'll show the album cover, the single cover, whatever. But it's definitely, I've found that to be an issue with like putting songs on TikTok that are for like a songwriting challenge and that they're not necessarily finished, and then that's a whole process and it's hard to like maintain hype for prolonged periods of time. Like Sam was saying, like it kind of has to be relatively quick for people to stay interested in it.
Yeah, I'm like probably the worst at the unreleased music thing, just because I'll go on like Instagram Live and I'll just be like excited, and I'll pretty much like leak songs all the time. Or I'll like yesterday I did a Zoom with a few fans for my project Car Wash, and I was just like sharing computer audio, and I'm just like really bad at, I guess, being patient enough to like build that momentum. So honestly, the advice from Prince Fox and Ellie is honestly good advice for me as well. Just working on the timing of when I do that. But I don't know, it's always fun. Just the excitement of showing someone for the first time. Just of when it kind of comes out.
Yeah, I remember like if I make something cool, even if it's like 10 seconds long, I'll like put it on my story. But like Sam and Ellie were saying, I don't even start a marketing plan for stuff to like post and stuff like that until I know like the release date of the song. right? And I put it through my distributor or whatever. Because like Sam said, people do not have attention, especially with short form media and the number of artists there are. So I'm not going to keep someone's attention. Like I'm not going to be Playboy Cardi and tease an album 2 years ago and have people wait on it because I'm not Playboy Cardi, you know, so I can tease something a week earlier and and then release it. Cause I'll have their attention for that moment. And if you guys, anyone follows me on Instagram, like, you know, I'll just spam stuff for like a week because I want you to think about Sumit. I want you to like you are waiting for Sumit to release for these 4 days, you know? But that's kind of, yeah, I guess that's the most of it. But the other thing is if you're a new young artist, like don't worry about releasing music on a set timeline.
Yeah.
A lot of people try, like when I was on SoundCloud only, I would just like, I'm gonna release a song every 2 weeks. And I only ever had one song ready. And honestly, like that sucked, right? So just take your time making your music, put out a single or two. These comments are brutal, man. Put out a single or two and, you know, like let people know who you are, but like don't worry about, you know, putting out a studio album in your first month. Because if you wait on it, you get it better. You talk to people, like that'll help you in the long run.
Yeah, I think I want to definitely clarify though, like if you're stoked about something, post it to your story right when you're excited because that'll come through. I'm just talking about it in terms of like overall marketing strategy and like leaking HQ type stuff. And if it's computer audio on like Instagram Live or a Zoom or Twitch, that's cool because the people that are on those sorts of platforms, like they're not scrolling, like you are what they're watching. So their retention for what you're showing them will definitely be longer. My previous comment were just like feed posts and short form TikToks and stuff like that, or running ads. But otherwise, like I think you guys are all, you know, spot on.
Beautiful. Also taking a minute to shout out an MVP in the comments. Kate, keep commenting. Love to see those. To see that commentary, and also just popping into a question that was previously asked, keeping in mind that you are all independent artists, is there anything you would be looking for in an ideal manager? This is just advice for future artists, anything that you're looking for, maybe if any managers are listening into the live stream.
I think that with the managers that I've been with, who I love all of them, I would shout them out, you know, all individually. Whenever things did or didn't work out, it was because I did or didn't have my shit together. I think every team starts with the person who's putting the team together. And if, you know, at the time I wasn't motivated or doing the right things on social media, or I wasn't putting in the effort, then, you know, it wasn't necessarily up to me to turn around to my manager and say, well, why isn't this working out? And I think that that's one of the things that I've learned over the years is that the buck always stops with you. And a really good manager is someone that can help take what you do and amplify it. And, you know, I think it's important to surround yourself with honest people that can help your vision and can help you do what you do and make what you're really good at easier for you to do and play to your strengths. Not someone that's like going to fix all problems or that's going to, you know, give you a silver bullet to superstardom because, you know, when I was 18, 19, I thought that's how managers worked. And I was, you know, banging on everybody in their mother's door saying, oh, manage me. Look, I got this. I did that. Da, da, da. But it doesn't matter if I'm not mentally in the right place to give to that manager-artist relationship.
Most definitely. I actually very, very recently just got a manager, so I am no longer dependent completely. But I think just kind of building off of what Sam says, I think it's really important to find someone who, one, you work well with, but also, you know, I'm making music for the long haul. Like I'm not trying to be like a one-hit wonder and just like make viral content that just disappears. Like I want to make music that will last for a while. And I think it's really important to have people on your team that support that and aren't trying to exploit you to get paid, but that really want to see you do well for a long time. And, you know, want to be on your team forever and always to really just see you grow. So those would be my thoughts.
Yeah, I think you you guys covered everything I would be looking for in terms of just like finding that trust in someone who really is as passionate about your music as you, and who wants to fight for you. I think that's the biggest thing, is that they're really passionate, because there's going to be people out there who have like bigger connections or have like this name attached to them and stuff like that, and just make sure that it feels right to you and your gut, and trust your gut with who you want to work with. And I think that's really important always.
Yeah. I don't know if there's too much I can add, because I feel like they covered everything. But I guess one thing is like red flags to look out for, especially for, like young artists that don't know too much about the industry and like legal terms. Because one thing a manager is going to do is going to send you a contract, right? And if you're a young artist, you're not going to have a legal team yet. And so Sumit, actually, like CEO of Slingshot, is the person who helped me avoid some really predatory deals. So like over 20% is usually a red flag. I think there's like little cases, very few, where that would ever be broken. One thing I learned about, which I guess is pretty basic in the music industry, but I learned about this when someone tried to reach out as a manager and I turned them down, is that like a sunset clause is important. And so just looking up basic things and basic resources about like what to look out for in a contract can be really, really helpful. Because a lot of times when I was talking to Dallas K yesterday, he said he just signed his first couple of deals without reading anything, right? And they ended up screwing some parts of the stuff that he was doing over. So just look out for resources and be a little bit of an entrepreneur yourself, because you kind of have to be.
Yeah.
And like I said, it comes down to what like everyone said, is that you got to genuinely be excited about your music and not your money.
Lawyer should be number one. If there's one piece of advice, get a good lawyer that you love and that you trust. Period.
I have something to kind of add. Just kind of that like getting a good manager is important, but also educating yourself on how the industry works as much as you can. Whether it's just like, there's so many good YouTube videos out there that have like helped me a lot. And just like because like you'll go into like calls with people that come and email you, and you sometimes just have like no idea what they're talking. Like I had no idea for a little bit, like exactly what the difference between publishing versus distribution was. And so when people were talking to me like about those kinds of deals, I was just like listening, but I wasn't able to like really be contributing that much or be evaluating exactly what they're saying. And so just educate yourself as much as you can. I have this book, I forget exactly what it's called. It's something like all around the music industry or something. It's like a yellow book. If you look it up, it'll probably show up. But I think that's important. It's just trying to be as knowledgeable as possible.
Yeah, and I think one thing is that the reason the music industry is so complicated is because when things were created, they wanted to do things to keep the people who had the money with the money, right? Like they wanted to keep publishing, distribution, like legal, all these things separate, so people in power could stay in power. And I think one thing that's changing is that like young artists are looking for resources themselves, and it's kind of throwing off that balance, even though it's still really there. But a little self plug, like Slingshot's going to come out with a bunch of really cool tools for young artists soon. So you can manage your own publishing, which I know, at least I didn't even know about till like a couple months ago, after I put music out already. So just look out for that. But yeah, like Garrett said, like do your own research.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And just like elaborating on what you guys were saying a little bit more, could we dive in specifically to like tools or lessons that you guys learned, just because as independent artists, you really do play every single role. I remember Ellie saying something in an earlier conversation about how she realized that like making music is only a small part of being a musician, and you really have to be your own manager and creative director and PR person and booker, and you have to educate yourselves on all different aspects of the music industry. Has there been like one piece of information or like a certain resource that you'd like to shout out, or something that just really stuck out to you from a business end?
Oh man, not to sound like a broken record, but I feel like it's just about being honest with yourself. Like if you honestly are stoked with what it is that you're doing, and you're putting stuff out and it comes across and the right people are associated with you because of your excitement and their excitement for what you're doing, like the right things will fall into place. I truly believe that in any business that you're in, whether it's music or anything else. Like if your heart is in the right place, you're putting in the work, you're self-critical, but not to a point where you're not putting anything out, but you're honest, like, this is where I'm at, this is where I'm going, and you keep pushing on. The right people will be attracted to that energy, and it will just work out forever in your favor.
Yeah, I also think, like, as far as, well, Kyla, you mentioned something that I had already said, but, you know, making the music and having the actual product, that's one thing, but there's a million other things tied to that motivates people to actually listen to it. And that goes with whatever cover art you're using, how you're marketing it, whether that's on social media or through any other way, any visuals that are tied to that. And I think what I've found is it's really helpful to find people that can fill in the gaps that you're not able to complete yourself. Like, I am not an artist, and so having people help me out with cover art and like help me take photos, or like help me create some nice visuals to pair with it, or like promo videos, has been so great, and also just naturally expands your network of who you're working with. So don't be afraid to, you know, lean on someone or ask for help if you can't do it yourself, but also just it's hard. You have to kind of do everything sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not even sure business-wise exactly advice, but I think kind of what Ellie said about working with other people is working with your friends that you know that you don't have to outsource everything towards people like you see on social media, or specifically like other people's work that you may look up to. You can do so much with. I'm lucky to have really talented friends as well, but I've kind of done a lot of visuals, and like Kyla has helped throw shows with me, or like my girlfriend's thrown shows. And kind of working with your friends is always going to be, I think, the most fun. And it's been cool just seeing the same friends that I had in like the very, very beginning of like 2018 to like where everyone's already been able to grow to now, and it's still the same community. But I think just staying in touch with that, and not, I guess, I don't know, just remembering like who your friends are and like who was there in the start is always really important, and they're the ones that are always going to be there for you and support you. And I don't know, I think it's always important to stick with your friends as much as you can.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I just like my eye went to a question in the comments which mentioned that artists is being a lot like running a company. I would agree. I'm definitely more in the space of like, for me as an artist, like my talent can't carry my career, which I like isn't true for even some of the people in this panel. Like I'm not ashamed to admit that like I'm not the best like sounding artist there is. So I have always been someone that really pushes on like doing the extra work and like kind of treating your artist or yourself, if you're an artist, like as a little bit of a business, right? Because there's more than one channel to get to your fans. There's more than one place to grow. And if you get picked up by a label, like that's essentially what they're going to do for you, just without consulting you. So I think there's never any harm to like doing some of the busy work that needs to be done, which is kind of annoying because when you get into artistry and you get into like songwriting and stuff like that, is that you do it because you enjoy the creative aspect of it. But if you want it to end up putting like meals on your table, you have to be able to like do some of the busy work at some point. And so we might as well start that early.
Totally. I think that's a really good point, is you got to treat it like a business. It's, you know, the same way if you're working at a big company, if the CEO just has their feet kicked up on the desk, all the people working for the person running for the company are not going to be inspired. You're like, oh, look at this dude. He's just sitting up there not doing anything. And, you know, corporate culture within even a small team of artist and manager, artist and lawyer, and the relationship that you have and the dynamic that you create, even in the smallest of circles, and, you know, as your artist career grows, it'll get bigger and bigger, is so super important. And just like Sumit, you were saying, getting in the trenches yourself, no matter how big or small you are, really helps you take things that extra, you know, 10, 20, 50, 30, 100%, because like I said earlier, the buck stops with you. And I think that's a really good point that you touched on.
Yeah, and another thing to that is that if you start out doing the work early, when you end up getting to the point where you're big enough that other people are doing it for you, you're gonna be able to understand it and help like guide their decisions so that they're not just scamming you for money, right? Like if you understand how publishing works, you're gonna be able to help the people who are doing your publishing in the future make the best decision and understand that decision. And so honestly, I think that applies across industries. Just having the basic knowledge of what people are doing is always helpful. And I think, yeah, it's really important. So.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for touching up on that comment, Sumit. That was one that I was going to bring up next. But now that we've already spoken about that, I have noticed that each of you have very strong relationships with your listeners via social media, via whatever platform you're using. And so I just wanted to ask for a little bit of elaboration on how you build a community as an artist past the music that you're making. Because obviously the people who are invested in you and invested in your music appreciate you as a person and the honest and genuine interactions you have with them. So is there any advice you would have to small musicians just looking to build their support system?
That's a really good question. I think that the most important thing right now, because it really changed since I first started, so I won't get into how everything started, but right now and going forward and what I plan to do, with my new project is every single person that hits follow, every single person that notifies me on any social media that they're playing what I'm making or that they're enjoying what I'm doing or what I'm posting, as best as I can, I'm going to try and interact with them as if they were my friend. And I notice that they, put a comment on my page or something like that. The more people feel like you care and that they're not another number on the screen, the more engaged they'll be. And whether that's from commenting back or liking it or doing giveaways or, once your fan base gets big enough, trying to find ways that you can interact on a more personal level with your fans, whether it's digital meet and greets or in-person meet and greets or, pre-show pizza parties or like the list of potential opportunities is endless. But the more you treat your fans and as friends and, fellow human beings, I think that is really the recipe for longevity. Because at the end of the day, we're all the same. We're just choosing to do something different with our lives. We're choosing to be entertainers. And I think that, previously in my past, you get carried away with, I got carried away with, at times being associated with certain people and be like, oh, I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. And then you see how fast shit slides from under your feet because, everybody's the same. Everybody's a person. And that is what I have found to be the best way to approach it. As soon as you're like high on your coattails, like, oh, I'm hot shit, I got this song or that, that's it. The floor comes out way faster than you built it up beneath yourself. So just keep everything level-headed, cool, everybody's chill, and you'll go really far.
Most definitely. I think, pre-COVID, as far as live performances, staying after you perform, whether that's to watch anyone that performs after you or like just thank people for coming to the show was a big thing. And definitely social media has played a huge part in connecting with, your fans and anyone who follows you. I think for me, it's been fun to like look at DM requests and, actively keep conversations going with people that like my music and respond to what I'm posting. And I think it's been fun also to do like stories have been great to interact with people and like put questions, read the responses, respond to people. I've done that to like make playlists of people's song requests, and then that's been fun because like I'll share playlists with my friends, so it's been nice to share it with the people that follow me and actually share music back and forth has been really fun. So just kind of using the tools that you have to connect more with your audience as much as possible has been really helpful for me, moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially with what Prince Fox said about kind of approaching people with as just being a fellow human being. And it's really important to remember and like be appreciative that like a lot of like your success as an artist is very dependent on, or is really almost solely dependent on the people that support you. If there weren't those people there, then you would just be making music and like you'd still be doing the same thing you were doing, but maybe you wouldn't have the opportunity to do it as a career. And so I try to respond to like as many people as I can, and be like actually read what they're saying, because sometimes you get messages that really kind of like someone really took time out of their day to try to articulate how your art or your music makes them feel. And I think just being respectful of that person and responding and having a conversation, and I recognize like usernames and profile pictures that like have been there for months and stuff like that, and like you build a friendship honestly with these people over time. It's really cool.
Yeah, I was speaking to Zach Katz yesterday, and he said he had a very strong opinion that COVID would be the best thing to happen in the music industry, because like he is the CEO of Raisin Space, which is music tech investments, and so the tech has honestly been really slow to adapt to the music industry. And he said that when you're reaching your fans, when artists are reaching their fans, they have like their music, their social media, and their physical experiences, which is like merch or like meet and greets and stuff. And so what he said is that COVID is going to bring about those fourth and fifth and sixth channels, because those first three have been the way it's been for like 50 to 100 years. I guess maybe not the social media aspect. And so I think like the cool thing is that we're going to find a lot of new ways to interact with fans, given how necessary tech is right now in this pandemic. But I'm really excited for it. And I think like we're even seeing new things pop up every day with how you can reach fans. And so, yeah, I think, and just that'll just make what, Sam, Ellie, and Garrett said about like reaching your fans and treating them as people, not just a number. That'll make that even stronger. So.
Beautiful. That was some lovely explanations, and that concludes all of the questions that we have for this panel. If there's anything else you guys would like to throw out there for our listeners, any plugs you'd like to put out there for your music, your social media.
You can reach me with any questions or music or anything at Prince Fox. That is my account as of now, on all socials. It was a pleasure being here and hearing what all of my fellow panelists had to say. Thanks for having me, and I hope to see you guys out there.
Likewise, if you guys want to reach me directly for sharing music or any questions you have, I'm on Instagram at Ellie1Williams. I'm on TikTok, just the same handle, Ellie1Williams. Thank you guys. Thank you, Slingshot, also for having me. And I've learned so much from everyone on this panel just in the time that we've had alone. So big thank you for having me, and hope to hear from you guys.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I'm Postcard Boy _ I have yet to been able to take down this pumpkin that is Postcard Boy without an underscore. It's just a pumpkin in the profile picture with 0 posts, 0 following, 0 followers. But hopefully I'll get that. I'm also carwash.music is my other project. But yeah, feel free to message me. Thank you to Slingshot and Kyla for doing this. It was really cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the @Sumit, and I think on Instagram it's like Pokemon. So like I just a Pokemon in the profile picture with like 1 follower. So I feel the struggles, but yeah, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at like the handle right here. And yeah, I'm just really excited, and I think this is really great, being able to talk to other artists that I honestly listen to all of them. And so I had a really great time. Thank you.
Of course. And if you watchers find this useful, please make your way over to sling.la/donate to donate to Music Cares, helping out artists, especially during this pandemic. And with that, we conclude our final panel of the Slingshot Summit. Thank you all so much for coming. You can find us on Instagram at SlingshotOfficial, and make sure to stay tuned. As Sumit prefaced, we have some really exciting music tech coming out soon. And yeah, thank you so much for watching us this weekend. Bye.